Good evening and welcome to a new edition of To The Point. This evening we'll be discussing is Brexit looming on the horizon. With us this evening to discuss this issue is Mr. Mohamed Ezz El Din, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Al Ahram Daily newspaper. A pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure to have you.
Before we go into any details, do you see that after Britain exited, after the Brexit, is the possibility of France also exiting the European Union? Is this going to materialize any time soon?
Of course, that will encourage France as well, but on a long term, not like the short time that take it from 2016 when people voted to exit from the European Union in Britain. But it will take time, and it will take also a political debate in all the government between the people and also the institutions. So it will take time, but I think after after Britain is succeed in exit from the European Union and it's be a reality, so that will encourage France as well to exit Brexit as well.
Macron at the end of the year, specifically in a statement that was issued on December 31st, 2020, said that 2021 will be a year whereby France will be taking a referendum on whether to remain in the European Union or to leave, or to Brexit, as we say. July of last year, a strong movement was formed, the movement called Generation Brexit. It was a movement formed by Charles Gallois, and he is really strongly calling for France to leave the European Union and to start looking for its own interests. Do you think 2021, when we go through a referendum, when France goes through this referendum, will the French people vote that France should be preparing itself to leave the European Union like Britain did?
It could happen, but I think that all the European Union, not only France, is passing now the vaccination to end the corona pandemic, COVID-19. So I think it depends on how it will prepare the people, prepare all the documents, prepare all the discussions inside France to Brexit or exit from the European Union. I think it will take time more than that, than July. I think it will be by the end of this year, or maybe in the next year, depending on the success of vaccination in France and prepare all people to get to this point. Yeah.
The situation in the European Union is not really very well. If we look at some things in France, for example, while the government is bracing itself, and even the French Prime Minister is saying that another lockdown might be inevitable, you see the Minister of Education at the same time going out with statements saying the situation in schools is very bad, the morale or the psyche of the students is not very good. Exclude schools from the lockdown, for example. You hear of universities, leading universities in here, I don't want to name universities, that say over 20% of the students in polls say they want to commit suicide. University students. We even hear of university students that have actually committed suicides. We hear of students that are saying they can barely make ends meet to put one meal on the table. What I'm saying is that really the situation on the ground, people really are suffering to the extent they're not only suffering economically, but even emotionally and psychologically, people are not doing very good in the aftermath of COVID. is this going to push, get people to push the French government that we cannot support the have-nots in Europe anymore?
Definitely.
Because, you
Yeah.
know, France and Germany are really now the two powers carrying the financial burden in the European bloc.
Of course, yes. I'm saying yes because people, as you said, that they are suffering already. So they have many issues to solve first. We remember all the yellow shirts and that people. So they have to prepare the ground first for that decision. Not only there is many issues, hidden issues, have to put it on the table first. Not
What
not
kind of
only
issues do you think should be are on the table right now, or should be on the table?
the GDP of all the Union, European Union, not only France, had declined sharply.
Yes.
Yes, all the situation, even too many people lost their jobs. So they have solved this only. Too many people want to more money for their work, even the workers on a weekly basis, not only the people who work in the private sector or in the government. So as well, they have the issues that the people that are coming from outside the Europe, from Syria, from Iraq, from all over the world, they have too many things to discuss first. Besides the crisis, the political, the economic crisis that hit the whole economies around the world. Also, they have to pay for vaccination. They have to end this first. Then they have to discuss deeply all these issues that hidden now, but they want an independency. The thing is not about the independency only. You have a people. You have
Is it
a
in
country.
France's interest to leave the European Union?
I
will
want
France
to say
benefit?
Yes, I don't want to say that some jealousy from the Britain. The two countries are facing each other's from a long time ago. So I think they think the same way that Britain has think. They have to put their money inside. They have the freedom to work, to back its currencies only. The thing is huge. They have to first they have to put the Schengen aside.
Yes.
Then they have to back all the national currencies. So that they will back again to deal with the franc, the franc. So I think it's big, and not only success on the political side. They have to deeply find all the ways to prepare the stage. Then they have to vote. People have to vote, and I think if they vote in this situation, I think will refuse to leave the EU.
What will be the shape of the EU should France exit? Will be under discussion in a few moments, but first let's take a look at the following report.
The Generation Freecast campaign was launched in France, inspired by Dominic Cummings, the political advisor to the British Prime Minister, the leader of the Vote for Exit campaign, and Nigel Farage, the leader of the British Brexit Party. This is an attempt to clone Britain's exit from the European Union, described by the leader of the French campaign, Charles-Henri Gallois, as a poisoned political bloc. After mixing with the most skeptical in Europe, Aspiring to reproduce the success of the British referendum to leave the European Union and his meeting with the leaders of Brexit, Gallois decided to form a new movement under the slogan, "Take Back Control." His campaign slogan also bore the bright blue colour that Farage, the leader of the Brexit Party, adopted ahead of the 2019 European Parliament elections. Gallois said that the British Brexit campaign was unbelievable because it was a war for European countries to regain their control. Gallois expected that the European Rescue Fund, dedicated to the corona pandemic, worth 750 billion euros, will ultimately help convince French voters that the European Union project is no longer a conglomerate worth participating in. He claims that Italy and Spain are the biggest winners from the Corona Recovery Fund, while Paris will pay huge sums to European coffers, pointing out that the COVID-19 crisis showed that the European Union was poisoned. They talk about the Recovery Fund for France, but we are paying to preserve the European Union and the euro. This is a statement made by Gallois, pointing out that French President Emmanuel Macron defended the European ideology that impoverishes the French people. And he will go ahead to preserve the single currency, which is a nightmare, according to Gallois.
Welcome back. Mr. Mohamed, before we looked at the report, we were asking about, should France decide to Brexit? What will be the fate of the European bloc, taking into account France and Germany are the two pivotal countries carrying the European bloc. Italy is really going through a very, very hard time, and it even has a lot of political tension right now.
Yeah.
If France Brexits, will we have a European bloc afterwards? Will there be a European Union, so to speak?
No, they will suffer. I think it will break all the union because France in the last 3 years is taking the lead. If we know that Merkel, Chancellor Merkel is leaving and France is even politically taking the lead of the European Union. Macron has a bright view now and a new position in the international situation. So I think he is carrying a lot. So if they Brexit, I think that will be the European Union will see a hard time. Besides, all the issues is not even with the deal with the UK and the European Union, all the issues is not solved. They signed the deal, but on the financial services, even on the fishing, they have a huge problems have to solve. So I think if France is Brexit, I think it will be broke. Not like people when they say that it's a smooth divorce when they talking about the Brexit. But I think with France, I think it will be starting of collapse the European Union.
With us on the phone is Dr. Amr Saleh, former advisor to the World Bank. Dr. Amr, can you hear us?
Yes, good evening.
Yes, good evening. First, we see Brexit, we see COVID-19, and now there is talk of even a Frexit. Should France leave the European Union? In your opinion, can that bloc survive economically?
Well, let me tell you my opinion first. I don't think that France is really serious about going out and leaving the European Union.
Okay.
I'm one of those persons that have lived in France. I've studied in France. I know the French people. I know the French society. I was connecting to the French political sphere, and what has been said today is just, political, just a political, how would I say the term? It's just to attract some voices and some spheres in France during the election. And it has always been known in France that during the election, we are used to see a very radical slogans. So I don't think that France is really serious. You know better than me that France and Germany were really the one of the important force behind the European Union, behind this construction, due to the economic difficulties that France is really witnessing, and I think that the French case is totally different comparing to the British case. So coming to that point, I don't really think that the French public opinion is going to vote if there is a referendum, is going to vote for leaving the European Union. And I think that the French society, and I think more that the French generation, the young generation, are attached to the idea of the European Union and the union between the European countries. The French are a little bit different comparing with the British. France have always been a country that that wanted to regroup countries and not to leave a group. So, from my very personal opinion, I do not really think that France or even any future French president would even raise this question and bring it to a public referendum.
What about the people? The people there are really suffering greatly, especially the young generation. We hear of a lot of students in universities that are going through depression, that are barely making ends meet. Some even went as far as committing suicide. Do you think those negative vibes there, they might push the French administration to start thinking we need to really concentrate just on getting things done at home and not worrying about the whole block?
Yeah, I told you, as you said, I think this is going to be not totally a political suicide, but I don't think that this is going to be on any political agenda. I've told you that I lived in France during the 90s. I have witnessed the construction of the Eurozone, and I've also witnessed, especially in the political sphere and in the scientific sphere, how France and the French people were really keen to endorse and to support such an environment and such a sphere, a European sphere, because they thought and they really care about having a larger environment where they can move, where they have bilateral relations, they have commercial relations. French is a French people, and France is a country of culture, and French people have always been keen, as I said, to regroup countries around the idea of a certain union. And I told you, I've witnessed how French people in the French generation of the President Mitterrand, Chirac, and then Sarkozy have been really keen of building a construction where people in Europe can move freely and have more union rather than any borders or any any difficulties between them.
Sir, before we wrap up, how do you see the European Union surviving COVID-19? It's one of the hardest hit areas. Economically, the bloc is really suffering. How do you see it surviving?
Yes, well, it's one of the hardest moments. We've seen years ago what happened in Greece, and then before what happened in Spain. France had witnessed some difficulties years ago, and I've always said that the French economy, the European economy, is an old economy. It's like an old continent. European people have some difficulties in bearing with the competition of the Americans and the Chinese, the Korean, the Japanese, and also from some growing countries. So I really think that things will be more difficult in the coming years, especially with the COVID-19, and that's why I do think that the European Union and especially France will be keen to be a part of a certain union. Maybe some rules might change between the European countries, but I think that France will be really keen to be a part and to also lead. France has always been a leader. France has always been keen to play the role of a leader, and that's why I don't think that France will even think about leaving the European Union.
Dr. Amr Saleh, former advisor to the World Bank, thank you very much for joining us on To The Point. Mr. Mohammed, should the European Union not survive COVID-19, how will this affect world economies, so to speak? How will this affect us? Europe is a big partner with Egypt, for example.
Of course, yeah.
How will this affect us here? Because this is what people here are concerned about, the effect of any disruption in that bloc. How would it affect this part of the world?
Well, affected deeply, I think, because the European Union has too many relations. There have many relations with every part of this world, and they take the easiest discussions and also take that side that with the growing countries and support the peace, support the poor people in some areas, and they have a special agenda, not like the States. Even they have a good relation with African and Arab countries, the Gulf area. Try to have a balance between the superpowers and the East, the West. So I think if they deeply affected in France, and if the EU fail in vaccination, and they have already all the world have hundreds of billions of losses from the COVID-19. Yes. So I think it will it will deeply affect all the world, and the relation between France and their neighbors, their countries, the countries that make a good relation with them in trade, and even on the political side, because the changes on the political parties in France also change its rules, its decisions in the area. So I think we need to be to find the France strong in the EU, and independently strong with the country, the national people of France as well.
With us on the phone is Dr. Passant Fahmy, Professor of Economics and former Member of Parliament. Dr. Passant, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yes, good evening. Is Frexit looming in your point of view? Do we see the disintegration of the European Union as we know it? And should that happen, how will the balance of power economically be?
Honestly speaking, the European Union was never a success.
Okay.
It was only a unity for a currency. Only. It has started in 1958, and ever since, nothing has been there. I mean, it is not, for instance, like the United States. When you look at the United States, it's one country. But when you look to Europe, they're different. Each country has its own government, own president, sometimes royalty. They have their parliament, and it's very different. So unity was only there in the sense of currency unity, and not all of them as well. Mind you, England stayed with its currency, Switzerland with its currency. So it was never a real unity in the sense, I repeat, like the United States, for instance. Definitely, the whole world is going through a very difficult period. We can't see exactly what's going to happen. But in my personal opinion, I think that the new world will have to be in the form of some countries will have to form, as we call, regional cooperation or regional unity, if you wish, versus globalization. Globalization as well was not a success. So I think regionalization would be a success. They don't have to have the same currency, they don't have to have the same policies, but at least they have to cooperate as a region. And I think Europe, in my personal opinion, should go that way. Like if you look at our part of the world, we as well are going to be divided, will be divided into regions. You see, and the regional cooperation would be much more effective. In the sense, you will keep your independence, but at the same time, you will cooperate in a regional manner. So I think when we talk about Europe, Europe was never a success, honestly speaking. And even if France or others would change the way they're going to cooperate together, it doesn't mean they're not going to cooperate, but I guess it's going to be a new formula. We have seen England getting out because it was not a success. And now they're forming other type of unities in the commerce, international commerce, for instance. As well, we need to look into something a little bit new, which is economic diplomacy. So we will see regionalization, the formation of regional areas, and we will see the economic diplomacy developing very fast.
Can you elaborate on, Dr. Passant, can you tell us what you mean by economic diplomacy?
Meaning the whole world, when they deal together, economics should be on the top of the list. And the diplomacy should work to form benefits, because the world became too small due to the technology. So you cannot talk the same language we used to talk in the past. And we cannot really the countries cannot deal together in a competitive manner. No, they have to be then dealing together in a cooperative manner. And that's why I said the diplomacy should concentrate on economic, as we call economic benefits for all parties. And that's why I said economic policy and regionalization, the formation of regional areas which have common interests. For instance, if you take the Arab world, like for instance, our part of the world, North Africa, it's a region.
Yes.
And you cannot disregard. It's the entrance to Africa. We and all countries on the top. There are other parts as well. The Gulf area is a region. So those are regions they should cooperate together. We cooperate in which aspect? In the form of, as I mentioned, economic diplomacy. No war, no, I mean, all the old systems has to be left apart. Now we need to use that type of talk, that type of cooperation between the countries, so that we seek stability on the globe. Or else it would turn into different areas where nobody would like to.
Dr. Passant, a final question before we wrap up. Why is it that some countries have managed to somewhat survive the effects of COVID-19, whereas real powers, economic powers worldwide are really suffering, so to speak? Why is it that some countries succeeded in containing and others don't?
First of all, if we take Egypt as an example. Number one, the climate. Number two is the type of project you're working on. The type of project we're working on and our climate allow us to work 365 days in the open air without really fearing the COVID-19 consequences. You could keep distance, you could work in the open air because of our climate. Like in the United States, it's a continent. So some states are working very well due to climate as well and due to diversification of the economy. You go back to Egypt. Egypt has a very well diversified economy. You could work in many things. And we have seen recently we turned into agribusiness, fishery, infrastructure, reconstructing totally our governorate, fighting poverty. So all this can be done even if COVID is there, if you take the precautions.
Yes.
But in some other countries, for instance, look at the winter in Europe now. It's very difficult to work during this period. They have to work into closed factories. Closed factories with COVID doesn't go. But infrastructure like in Egypt, fishery, agribusiness, and all the industries based on it are easy to go. And that's why you find parts of the world doing very well due to, as I said, God gift. And in other areas, they have serious trouble. But thank God in Egypt, all our projects and even the priorities who are not there at the present time, and the climate, 50% of the population are young, and moreover, the very well diversified economy in Egypt. All those points gave us and give to other countries similar to us the advantage to continue developing, while in other parts of the world they can't, because they used to work in closed areas and they cannot do anymore.
Dr. Passant Fahmy, thank you very much for your fruitful input. Thank you. Mr. Mohamed, maybe I can take up this question with you. Why is it that, or better put, you see a European Union that is struggling very much in the aftermath of COVID-19? You see, if we move further west, the United States is really struggling politically, not only in the aftermath of COVID, but also it is struggling politically. After the elections, we see quite a large divide in the American rank and file. How will this shape or draw the balance of power? And here I'm not just talking economically, I'm talking economically and politically. How will we see the world moving in the coming few years, taking into account that really the further west we go, the more trouble there is? How do you see the balance of power?
The superpower will be as it is, the United States, and we will see also as well Russia and China is following, and the people who will suffering or divided will be the European Union. If France is Brexit, the Union, they will lose its power, its stage that Macron has taken from Germany. I'm saying that also as well. And he was controlling the NATO after the United States. Now, if they lose their position, that will affect them and hit all this all these parts and succeed in many things politically, as you ask, and of course economically, because it also benefit from the union. There is a hidden some hidden issues. The funding of the European Union. They just passed the 2008 crisis 3 years ago only.
Yes.
So when the pandemic is coming, COVID-19 is coming, they hit all this success in all economies all over the world, not only in France or the EU. And as well, they will benefit only from the as well from the funding, a huge amount of money. Germany is putting a lot, the Scandinavian putting a lot as well, and I
will
think
they be able to continue funding that much, taking into account that locally the economies are starting to suffer? The powers of the European bloc are really suffering now in the aftermath of COVID. Lots of bills and lots of obligations towards their own people. People have lost their jobs, lots of a big burden on medical facilities, on the economies. I mean,
yes, but the rich countries will not keep funding for good. I mean, they will stop and rethink again of the benefits, what we will get. That the thing that UK build, it's a decision to leave. I think when they put it on the table, even people not agree in voting in France, but it will be a continuous issue that pushing on the government, pushing on the budget.
the coalitions forming
Of course, they paying a lot, and they have too many political and economical and even security issues have to solve. So I think that will push again and again on the government, and they maybe left this choice or delay it for another time when they finish the vaccination and they start to back to the normal circle of business.
You think containing the pandemic will sort of smooth things down and comfort people, so that movements like the one by Charles Gallois will sort of vanish? You think that if they contain COVID-19, such movements will not keep on pushing for a Frexit?
Yes, but I think it's a combination between jealousy and they want a freedom. We are free people. We just concentrate on our people to funding them and serving them, not all the people the East. I mean the Eastern European is suffering more, and they don't have a transparency in numbers like the West.
Yes.
I mean, so if the situation is moving like this for a year or 2 years, I think that will people, they will change their minds and they will accept to Frexit from the Union. But if the situation now is moving on and the vaccination has success, they have a success vaccination, and they left or put aside the negative effects of COVID-19, I think they will start to think on their nation, the France, and they will start to following the UK. Even UK, they have a problems. Now Scotland is, if they think to left the UK unity, so they will back to the EU, and the EU is I mean, it's not all not best days they live in the European Union. They have many things, many issues, many challenges. Security, the people who are moving from North Africa, from Syria, from all over the world to the European Union. So if they take this decision, they will concentrate on only on their country. And I think this side effect of the pandemic all over the world, not only on the European Union.
Mr. Mohamed Ezz El Din, unfortunately our time is up. I'd like to thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, my pleasure.
On To The Point, I'd like to thank you, the viewers. We'll see you same time next week. Until then, good night.